Hi, my name is Shaheen and I am at Motocorsa and I'm going to go over your new Monster Plus / SP model motorcycle. I imagine you just got the bike and you had a nice little walk around at the dealership and it was kind of exciting. You may have forgotten a couple of things. So come with me as I go over this motorcycle's basic features for you. So you just got your brand new Monster and you're asking what's next. Well, let's talk about break-in. Your Ducati, your brand new Ducati is going to need about 1,000 kilometers, 620 change miles of good solid riding for it to get broken into properly so that you have a nice long life cycle with the bike. Now everyone's got different theories on what to do on a break-in. In theory, you want to get some good warm and cold riding on the motorcycle, get the engine used to different speeds, different amounts of loads. First gear is the lowest load, sixth gear is the highest load. And make sure you're introducing all those loads and negative loads, downshifts, to the motorcycle in that 1,000 kilometer initial stage. It's really, really important. Next step, and this is a big one, call your local Ducati dealership soon. If you have an idea of how long it's going to take you to get that break-in time done, call them now, get an appointment going. The season's starting and you don't want to be left without a motorcycle for weeks on end. So get that appointment going so that you can get the bike loaded, ready to go, and not have any questions about it. A couple of things on these motorcycles, and I'm sure your dealership's already told you this, but this is the whole point of the video, so we can go over a couple of details. Your bike has the first break-in service at 600 miles or about 1,000 kilometers. Your next big service is going to be at 18,000 miles for your valve adjustment. Now in between all that you have oil changes. Everyone's got different theories of how often you should do it, so make sure you read your owner's manual so you can have a really good idea of what it is like for your motorcycle. I personally like doing it annually, no matter how many miles I put on the bike, but if I get to 9,000 miles in 1 year, I definitely do it as well. If you're the typical rider that only rides maybe 2,000 or 3,000 miles a year because you're busy, still a good idea to change your oil annually. So again, check with your owner's manual on that one. All right, first things first, your handlebar. You have a bunch of buttons on the right and on the left side. So I'm gonna go over the right side first so you can familiarize yourself. Everybody knows where the throttle is and where the front brake is, but it's always worth pointing out to new riders. So things haven't changed here in Ducati land. You still have a nice little setup here and it's easy to reach everything. The buttons here, there's 3 of them that are pretty significant. Top one is going to be your ignition button. Once the bike has been switched on, you can put it in run mode. Now, once you're in run mode, it primes everything and is ready to go. If you thumb this down and hold it for a couple of seconds, this bike will fire right up. Now, I'm gonna skip that part because we're indoors and it's not really good for us, but trust me, when you hit this, that's the fun switch. You're ready to go party. The next button down from that has a little light on there. This little lamp indicates your little daytime running lamp. You'll see on the dash, there's a little green light. If you flick this with your thumb manually, it'll overwrite the automatic light sensing headlight on and off switch. So your motorcycle comes with automatic headlights on and off, but if you wanted to manually override it, you can hit this little button. So if you see the green light on, it means the daytime running lamp is on, and if it's off, the daytime running lamp is off, and now you have your headlights on. Now the motorcycle is off, so it doesn't turn on the headlights, but it has a beautiful bright LED headlight on there with a really good looking set of DRLs that are very, very easy to see and spot. So again, kind of counterintuitive for some people, that little green light that looks like a headlight on there is actually for your DRL. If it's on, if it's off, off, and just like that. The one below there, this is a nice little switch for your hazards, your safety lights, for your 4-way blinkers, as some people call them. It's got a nice positive click to it. Now when you flick that, all the lights, 2 front, 2 in the back, your hazards are all on and blinking. This motorcycle actually has the Ducati Performance front turn signals on there, so they're nice and slick, and they have that really cool kind of oscillating feature on them. So again, when you want to turn it off, you just click it to the left and we're back to normal. And then next, we're gonna go to the left side. All right, moving on to the left side of the handlebar. You got a lot more buttons here because you don't have so much going on with the throttle. You just have your little clutch, which honestly with this motorcycle, with its quick shift, I only really use it for first gear. After that, quick shift up and down. It's pretty phenomenal. As long as you have the throttle positive, you can quick shift up, and then if you have negative throttle, just quick shift down. And if you've never used that, you don't need the clutch. You only use the clutch for first gear, and then after that, bump up the shifter with your toe up to go up shifts and then down to go down shifts. The bike will auto rev match and everything for you. So that leaves us these couple of buttons. There's one in the front. This little guy is your passing switch. You have two different buttons for high beam on and just passing, which is great. It's a little trigger right here for your index finger while you're riding the motorcycle. You can just flick it. The little blue light on the dash comes on to let you know the high beam is on, and just a quick release. When you let it go, it's done. This is a great way to let people know you're coming. If you need to get past somebody quickly, just a little warning shot. I'm coming through. Now, on the other side, you have this little button, which has little, light diagrams on there. If you notice, this is for the low beam and the high beam. So as long as it's on the low setting when the bike is running, the low beam comes on. If you have it on manual override or if it's bright out, the low beam will come on its own. If you want high beam, you put it on the high side and you can see it kind of lights everything up. It's a really beautiful bright headlight. Next to that, you have an up and down arrow. We'll go over that here in a little bit, but when we're going through the setting menu or anything like that, this is what we're going to use to go through the screens on the bike, which we'll go over here in a second. Below that, you've got your typical turn signal, left and right. If you want to cancel them, you press them in. This bike does have an auto turn signal cancellation feature on there that you can turn on and off. I kind of like leaving it on auto because sometimes I just forget, so it's nice to put it on, and then after a little while it turns off on its own as it feels the bike pick up a little bit. There's a tiny little bit of writing here, and it says mode and enter. So we'll go over that here in a second, but if you press this down for a couple of seconds, it takes you into your various mode selections that you then use the up and down buttons to select, and then you press it once to enter whichever mode you want. So I'll show you that here in a second. And then below that one is a tiny little button, and if you listen really carefully, that's right, it's the horn. And that's what I love about the Monster. It's fairly simple. There's not a whole lot of buttons to get used to. So you have your passing button, your up and down beam button, your arrow up and down, your turn signal indicator button, and then if you press that in, it'll turn off the turn signal if it's on, or if it's not on, then it's going to be an enter and or mode switch and your little horn button. Now let's go over the actual menus and how to set up your different ride modes. All right, first things first, let's go over what's on the dash. If you look, there's a lot, but it's actually not that bad. It's pretty easy to get used to quickly. Ducati does a pretty good job of putting things out and laying it out so that it's somewhat intuitive. We'll kind of start at the top left. You've got your fuel indicator, and then we'll go around. You've got your time, and you can set that up to 24-hour or 12-hour, however you like it. You've got your nice big RPM gauge, and then in the middle of that, your gear selector. Currently the bike's in neutral. There's a tiny little window on the bottom right there, and it's going to quickly show you your quick shift, traction control, ABS, and wheelie control settings. These are all selectable for you if you want to fine tune it in the main settings menu, and we're going to go over that. But currently the bike is sitting in sport mode, and quick shift is on. Ducati traction control is at 3, ABS is at 2, and Ducati wheelie control is at 2. The bike is off right now, so the engine heat looks like it's at low. And then as you kind of go to the left of the screen, you'll notice your indicator. I'll kind of point with my finger so you see what I'm talking about. Right there, it tells you whether you're in sport mode or urban mode or touring mode. And then in the, you have a little screen here that kind of goes over things like trip mileage and total mileage, and below that you've got your air temperature, and then above that you've got your speed in miles or kilometers, however you want to set it up. And there's a little red light on right now that says your side stand is down. It's a nice little safety feature. This bike will have an auto shut off feature, or if you put it in gear while the side stand's off, or on rather, just as a safety precaution so you don't ride off with your side stand down and do any kind of a damage. Now, on the left-hand controls, there's the up and down buttons that you can toggle up and down with. If you look at the screen, at the top screen right now, if I toggle up or down, it'll go through 3 different options. You have your settings menu, your lap timer, and then your DPL, which is actually a launch control that you can work with. You get, I think, 3 launches on this motorcycle within 20 minutes. Obviously, we can't do that in the showroom, but that's a neat little feature that you can use. If you hold this button down for a couple of seconds, it jumps to the lower menu. You kind of see it highlights it for us. Now we can look at a couple of different things. There's the total mileage on this motorcycle. There is your average consumption. Well, actually, this is your current consumption. As you're riding, you'll see that number go up and down. So right now it tells you it's at miles per gallon US. Trip 2, trip 1 time, speed 1. This is your average speed on trip 1. And then your average consumption on trip 1 as well. So currently the bike is at 31.3 miles per gallon US. And then trip 1. It's kind of an interesting thing that you have consumption 1, speed 1, and trip 1 time. They're all based on trip 1. So if you're on a long trip and you kind of want to see what it is you're doing, this is a good little indication for how you are riding right now. If you want to zero it out, you press down the enter button. So again, we're looking at the little turn signal stalk. If you press it in, press it once, it'll ask you, do you want to reset trip 1 info? If you want to, you press enter. If you don't want to, you press up for a couple of seconds and it comes out of that. But I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. And now it's zeroed out. So now if we scroll down from trip 1, we'll see that consumption 1 is 0, speed 1 is 0, and trip time is 0 because we haven't gone anywhere. So this is based all on trip 1. Trip 2 is going to be your overall trip, just odometer, and you can zero out the same way. So you press enter once and it'll ask you, do you want to reset? And if you press enter again, that'll zero everything out. So right now, all the information down here as far as trip 1 and trip 2 is concerned are zeroed out. Now, the next thing you'll see as you scroll through this little menu right below total is your range. Kind of neat because you have a fuel gauge and a range meter on here that kind of gives you an idea based on your average miles per gallon, how much range you have on this little tank on this motorcycle. So if you're done with this, you press up. And now we're at the top menu, which is DPL, settings menu, and lap timer. And now we're gonna go into the settings menu and fine tune your bike a little bit. Okay, let's get into the settings menu. Now remember, you can use this on the top little menu to go into settings, and we're going to use the enter button. So again, we're on the turn signal indicator stalk. We're gonna press enter once. And now we're in the main settings menu. The settings menu has a top and a bottom, and you can use the little arrow up and down to go through it. So when you're done with it, when you get to exit, you can hit enter and exit it. But right now, we're gonna kind of go over what all there is in here. You have your riding mode. This is where you're going to fine tune the riding mode to your liking. You have 3 different riding modes, so we'll go over that here quickly. Your fuel indicator, we're gonna enter in here to show it to you. So you can have it at level or range. At the very top left of the screen, that's where it's going to change it for you if you don't want to constantly scroll to the range of the bottom menu on the main screen. I'm gonna go back. Daytime running lamps. This is where you can choose whether it's manual or auto. But remember, anytime you press that button, it'll automatically take it back to manual mode. So you may have to come back here and change that. And then scroll down, backlight. That's going to be whether you have this on black or white. Ducati again has a light sensor on these motorcycles, and it's great for the backlight of your dash in that when it's daytime, it'll turn the backlight white so it's easier to see. When it's nighttime, it takes it down to the black backlight with white letters on there, just so it's not so harsh on your night eyes. You can change that to whichever one you like better. I tend to like auto, so I would select auto and go back. Pin code, this is something we typically leave alone on this motorcycle since you don't really need a pin to start the bike since you have an actual regular physical key for the motorcycle. This will allow your dealership service department to be able to go through the bike and set stuff. So I don't really mess with this too much, but it is there if you want to. Date and time, pretty explanatory. As you go in there, you can set date and time. If you press set date, again, we're gonna enter once. It's already selected for us, but if you want to change it, you press enter, and it'll allow you to change the date by going up or down to what year it is, enter the month, again, up or down to what month it is, and the date up or down to what date it is, and enter, and that's it on that one. Once you've set the date, you press enter and come back out to the date and time. You can scroll down to set time, exact same way again. Once you highlight set time, press enter again. It'll allow you to go scroll up and down to the correct hour, scroll up and down to the correct minute, and then PM versus AM. And then once you're done, you press enter again, and you're back to setting date or time. Scroll down to back, and we're gonna go down to service. This is kind of a neat spot. You can press this button and kind of see where the bike is at. It's gonna show you how long for your next oil change. This bike hasn't been broken in yet, so it's got about 450 miles left till its first oil change. It's Desmo service. There is still 18,500 miles left of this bike. This is a brand new bike, so we haven't quite gone there yet. And it'll let you know once the first service is done when the annual service will be ready to get done on this bike. So nice little way of looking at your bike's basic vitals. We're gonna go back, lap. You can turn it on or off if you want to have lap data and you're doing track time. A lot of people like to kind of see and get a general idea of what their lap time is at a track. It's always better to have an actual data monitor at the track so you have really good precision, but this is good. This will get you within a couple of seconds of what your actual lap time looks like. Tire calibration, if you are changing the street tires to a track tire, it's a good thing to have on this so that your traction control, wheelie control, and ABS work properly with this motorcycle, because typically a track tire has a slightly different shape to it than the street tire. Turn indicators, this is where we can have it be on auto off or manual off. Again, I'm kind of lazy, so I love the auto off one, so I'll select it, and then it'll automatically put you on back so you can get out of there. And then we're gonna scroll down to measurement units. If you're in the US, you're likely just going to use miles per hour and Fahrenheit and gallons. So for speed, temperature, and consumption, you can set it to what you like. If you're in our lovely neighbors north of us in Canada, likely you're going to use kilometers, or Mexico, or anywhere else in the world rather, you will end up using kilometers. So you can come in here and press enter on the speed and then pick kph versus mph. And then back and temperature, you can pick Fahrenheit versus Celsius. Back consumption, miles per gallon US, miles per gallon UK, or kilometers per liter, or liters per 100. Again, we're in the US, so we'll just remain miles per gallon US, and back. And then default, this is one of my favorite things about Ducatis. You can go in here and mess with all of these stuff, and if you notice, most of these settings have a default button as well. That just takes you back to factory settings, so really there's no wrong answers here. We'll go back. Info mode is simply going to show you how much battery you have and what RPM the bike's sitting at. We've got this bike on auxiliary for a little bit, so we're at 11.5 volts. We're gonna end up charging this little guy up a little bit so it doesn't die on us because I'm over here playing with it while it's off. I'm gonna go back here, and then we can exit out of the main settings menu. So next thing that we're gonna go over on this video is, we're gonna scroll all the way up here to our favorite spot, riding modes. That'll be the next subject here. All right, one of my favorite things about Ducati motorcycles is that they have multiple riding modes, and they're really easy to access. On this motorcycle, on the Monster Plus, we're gonna remember this little turn signal stalk. If you press it in at any point and hold it for a couple of seconds, you're gonna get to your different riding modes. You can use this up and down switch to select which one you want, and the beauty of this is you can do this on the fly. So I'm gonna pretend like we're riding. I'm gonna pull on the throttle, and I'm gonna tell the bike to go into touring mode. I'm gonna press enter once, and it's going to tell me to close throttle. There's a reason for this. We're gonna close throttle, and we're in touring mode. The reason for this is that the bike does not want you to go into a higher power mode with you just being on the throttle. They want you to get on the throttle slowly and modulate it yourself. So if you have the throttle open and you go from urban to sport, you're going to gain a good 30 plus horsepower in this motorcycle and have quite a punch on there while you're still maintaining throttle. So it's better and safer for you to close the throttle and then reopen it. And it literally takes 1 second. So I'm gonna do it again and show you. I'm gonna open the throttle. I'm gonna press down the enter button. I'm gonna go up to sport, select it, close the throttle, and just like that, we're in sport mode. Pretty easy, huh? All right, let's set the riding modes on this motorcycle to your preferred riding style. There are 3 different riding modes on this bike, so we're gonna hit enter. As you scroll, you'll see you've got urban, touring, and sport. From the factory, urban is going to be the least amount of power and most amount of ABS and traction control and wheelie control. And then touring is somewhere in the middle. You have what they consider medium power, which is ultimately the full power, but with a much softer roll-on. And then you're gonna be somewhere in the middle on ABS and traction and wheelie. And on sport, you're gonna be where all the fun's at. So let's go into sport and see what it looks like right out of the box. So here you can select the engine, traction control, ABS, wheelie control, and quick shift. And this is gonna be the case for each one. So I'm only gonna show you on sport. On engine, when you press it, you have the option for high, medium, or low. We're gonna leave it on high because sport's supposed to be the fun place. We're gonna go back, rolling down to Ducati traction control. Again, you've got all the way to off, which is more of a track setting. So 1 all the way to 8 On sport mode, most people like it at a 2 or 3, so I'll put 2 on this one and go back. ABS, you're gonna have 3 different levels, 1, 2, or 3. As you'll see, the motorcycle will tell you this is front only on 1. So if you're at sport mode and you're a track rider and you like to sort of back it in and slide the rear end around a little bit, nice little spot to be on 1. 2 is a good performance level for just about any rider, and that's how the bike comes out of the box, and 3 is much more conservative. So for the sake of this being our demo, I'm gonna leave it at 2, so there's rear ABS as well. Back. Ducati wheelie control, lots of settings here. You have off, which lets you wheelie this thing to infinity and beyond, and then 1 all the way to 4, just depending on how conservative you want the bike to be. So on sport mode, we usually tend to leave it at 1 or 2. Again, this is demo bike, so I'll be a little more conservative and leave it at 2. Go back, and then quick shift. All Ducati Monster Pluses come standard with quick shift for up and down shifting. So we're gonna enter here. You can turn it on or off. I love this feature. I tend to leave it on because it just makes it where I can be a much smoother rider and not necessarily have to deal with the clutch, especially on really twisty stuff that I like to up and down shift. I know some of you are going to be really old-fashioned riders and you want to use the clutch and you don't want to deal with the quick shifter. Good news for you, you can turn this off if you want to, and the bike will not maintain its quick shifting function. You can turn it always back to on if you're ready for that again. So as you can see, on off, it's all grayed out, and on, it's up and down, and it's a lovely feature, and you should really try it out and see what I mean about it making you a much smoother rider. So we're gonna press on and back. And again, if you don't like what you've done with this particular feature, so we're on the sport mode right now and trying to maintain what that mode looks like for you. If you don't like what you've done and want to kind of go back to default mode, you can always press the default button. And now it's back to default, just like that. Once you've done sport mode, you can go through touring and urban, do the exact same things to it, and just set the bike up exactly as you like it. I tend to strongly suggest for our clients to leave the bike factory default, get used to it, and then get in there and kind of start playing with it and see what fits you the most. And that concludes the most difficult part of this motorcycle, which is pretty darn easy. If you have any questions about it, don't be shy about it. I'll go over it with you again. All right, your Monster Plus is going to come with 2 physical keys. I always put one of mine in a safe spot, but the one key does 3 different functions for us. It's going to be for the ignition, where you put it in to the right, it gets the bike's auxiliary power going. You can put it in the center where it's off, or for security, if you turn the steering all the way to the right or the left, if you press down on the key and turn it all the way to the left, it is now locked. So it's a nice little safety feature that the bike comes with, and it's all right here in the center. The next function is going to be fuel, which is pretty self-explanatory. You just put it in there and open it up, fill it up with nice high-octane fuel so your bike runs nice and well. And then it's got one little hidden feature, which is the seat. All right, so there is a little hole in the back of the bike on the right side, exhaust side of the bike, where you could put the key in. When you turn the key, you'll feel it unlock. That's actually gonna unlock your main rider's seat. You pull up on this, and the seat comes off. Put it to the side for now. You'll notice a couple of things. It's nice and clean and tidy in here, so you have a little bit of space to put whatever you want in here. But one of my favorite things is that there's a little USB port back here. So you can connect your phone or anything like that if your dealership has not put a trickle charger port on the bike, which we tend to do on our motorcycles. That way you can keep the battery powered up on this bike if it's sitting for prolonged periods, or connect auxiliary stuff to it. So really nice that Ducati actually offers this on all their motorcycles. There is always a little power port hidden somewhere under the seat. And then the Monster Plus also comes with a beautiful, rear seat cowl. It's just solid plastic. You can't really sit on this one, even though there's a passenger peg. When you buy the new bike, your new bike should come with a box of goodies. One of them is the auxiliary passenger seat that you can take on and off. Pretty easy to do. Little bolt here, undo it, slide this little guy out, put the other seat on, and then when you're done and you're ready to go for a ride, you slide this guy back on as such. And don't forget to kick the key out of there. And this concludes the walk around of your brand new Monster Plus /SP. If you have any other questions, don't be shy, give us a call at 503-292-7488, and we'll help clarify things as much as you need. Have a great day.